Okay, so last time um, I was discussing Polyglot programming with Vert.x, and I was intending to talk about it in that video, but I couldn't get the project to work with some of the languages that I wanted to use. And the video was growing a little bit long, so I decided to pause it and do it in another video. So today I'm going to continue with Polyglot programming on Vert.x. To me, especially once I got it running, it was kind of shockingly amazing because you have this single project and you're using it with multiple languages. Now, it may seem useless, cool, but useless to have this feature, but it's actually not in certain cases. So, for example, I'm going to be migrating my application from Node Express to Vert.x. My language of choice is Java, at least for now. But I have obviously a lot of code in JavaScript and a lot of helper methods and related classes and things of that nature that are not specifically tied to any framework. So being able to reuse all of that code is, a big benefit to me. And I think a lot of companies are in that situation where they might be going from some legacy application like, I don't know, Ruby on Rails or JavaScript Node or what have you, having that capability, even if it's only temporary until they migrate the entire application, is actually pretty helpful. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go back to this and we're going to pick Gradle instead. So the issues that I had was getting Maven, the pom.xml file to take the configuration that I needed to add Kotlin and JavaScript. I'm not sure entirely what I was doing wrong, but it wasn't working for me. And during my investigation, I tried Gradle and I actually like it better than Maven because, like I said before, it's more programming like in terms of the configuration file. So just pick 3.9 Java, Gradle. You can pick whatever you want here, obviously. Just make sure you have the Vertx web component because that's where the routing is being done from. And, generate your project. Now, I've already gone ahead and done that. And I also switched to using IntelliJ from VS Code. And the only reason for that is I found that because JetBrains, they're the creators of Kotlin. So some of the configurations for Gradle and the IntelliSense for Kotlin are just nicer to use. So that's why I switched. I'm going to make all this code available on my GitHub. So, you won't have to actually type everything out by hand. So before I start actually coding this up again or continuing, I just wanted to mention that in order to get this working, you're going to have to update the build.gradle file. Now, in the first pass at this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the existing code from the previous video and including the HTTP vertical, and I'm going to take the handler vertical that was on this address, and I'm going to make that into a Kotlin file. So previously we had it as a Java class, so I'm going to make it into a Kotlin class. So As far as this existing code in Java, we don't have to do anything at all. All we have to do is create or recreate our home vertical file. And it's going to be a class. So I already have it typed out, but I'll just type it out so it's easier for you guys to follow along. So in order to do this video, I've been investigating Kotlin. I already knew a little bit of Java, and I'm pretty familiar with JavaScript, but I've been investigating Kotlin, and it's pretty good, I have to say. I think the syntax is a little bit shorter than Java. I definitely like that. So I'm going to give this the same address we had before. It's actually a little bit like a cross between Java and TypeScript, believe it or not. But either way, it's pretty good. I think I'm going to keep learning about it, and I might end up doing my migration project in Kotlin instead of Java. Okay, so as you can see, we've created our home vertical based on the abstract vertical. It still has to override start. The rest of the syntax is almost identical. So the nice thing with Kotlin is that because they both run on the JVM and they're bytecode compatible, Java is going to recognize the class right away, even though it's in a completely different language. The main thing that you want to remember when you're mixing these languages is that in the case of Kotlin, because JetBrains are the creator, you do need this plugin. And then additionally, for the purposes of Vert.x, you also need this dependency. And then finally, you need to add these compilation configs. So if you've done all that, this should run. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me zoom, make this bigger. So I'll just leave this up for a few seconds so you guys can take a better look at it. But below, as you can see, the compilation succeeded. It is on port 888. So welcome home, Kotlin. So to me, this is like really cool. I mean, here I have a Java project, right? No weird tricks. And then I was able, with a tiny handful of configs in my project config file, add just standard Kotlin code with no special attributes or weird imports or anything like that. And that works perfectly well. So then, to make things even more crazy, at least to me, I'm going to add JavaScript again within the same project. I mean, some of this stuff is probably reminiscent of .NET, because .NET was, always doing multiple languages, and there was a time where they even supported Java. I don't know if I think it was called J.NET or Java.NET. I don't know if that's still being supported or not, but it was never, you couldn't mix and match languages in the same project, right? At least not as far as I remember. So being able to do this to me is really cool and really amazing. Just to be clear, this is the value of this parameter right here off of the URL. So then this is identical, so I'm just going to copy and paste this piece. We're taking the request response, and at the end, we're casting it to the resultant body. So then, actually, so in the case of script languages, you actually have to use the path to the file instead. The other thing in this case is because we are running multiple asynchronous calls with the futures right here, we're gonna have to compose them so that they come in sequence, and then we return a single void future. So that's what that's about. Just so you can take a look at the end code right here. So then now obviously I have to create this JS file. But just remember that the JS file has to be created inside of the resources directory. Not entirely sure why that is. Probably for the same reasons that you have to pass in a file path in deploying a script-based vertical, but not entirely sure. Now, the nice thing about the script-based languages is that, let me make this bigger for you, is that you don't have to wrap them inside of a vertical class. It's implicit, so you don't have to have that extra bit of code. Now, I think the default JavaScript runtime is Nashorn, and it doesn't seem to support ES6 level syntax, so I was having problems getting string interpolation working. But there's not much code in here, so it's not a big deal, and I'm sure there's some flag or something that I can use to turn that on. But for this simple demonstration, I don't think it really matters. So just to review, we added a second route that takes a parameter. Its handler is going to be an event on the event bus, passing in that parameter, whatever it is, onto this address, and then expecting some return from there. And then of course we have to initialize the vertical, which in this case is a JavaScript file, which we pass in not by new but by the file name. And then the actual file itself is also on the event bus as a subscriber on the same address, taking in that message and then doing something with it and replying. So in terms of code, that's all we need. But because we introduced an additional language on top of Kotlin, we have to add the dependency. But this time the dependency is much easier to add, because all we need to add is this from the Vert.x library. So I'm just going to put this in here. So let's see if this worked. There it is. So again, to me, this is like super cool. It's actually amazing. As I said, pure JavaScript project, did not really do anything fancy at all. Was able to run with 2 additional languages, again, simultaneously. And of course, they're completely different languages. So you've got Java, Kotlin, and JavaScript running together in a single project without issue. The only thing that we had to do in addition was add something like 3 or 4 extra pieces of configuration into the project file. And on top of all this, after investigating Graal VM, the team claims that the languages within the JVM that they run are basically the same performance. Like there's virtually no difference between them. So you're not making any compromises by adding additional languages. And like what I said before, under certain circumstances, like doing a migration from legacy code, even if it's only at a temporary level where you just want to get things kickstarted and eventually you intend to go 100%, a single language, but in the interim, you want to bring over a lot of the existing helpers and functions and libraries that you've been using. This is an amazing solution. So next time I'm going to be starting the migration videos, and thanks for watching.